Part 1. The Silent Awakening. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in continuous operation for 72 cycles, and still no solution presented itself. Ambassador Velthor of the Chitteran Collective watched the holographic display with mounting dread as another star system went dark. The crimson marker that had represented the Quellan homeworld flickered once, twice, then vanished entirely from the three-dimensional map that dominated the center of the council chamber. 17 civilizations had fallen in the past rotation alone. 17 worlds that had thrived for millennia, home to trillions of sentient beings, simply ceased to exist. The attacks came without warning, without communication, without mercy. Entire populations disappeared as if they had never been. The only evidence left behind was the distinctive energy signature that scientists had begun calling the Void Echo, a haunting resonance that lingered in space, where life had once flourished. Velthor's 4 compound eyes tracked the movements of the other council members as they argued, postured, and ultimately accomplished nothing. The Drachner ambassador insisted on mobilizing their battle fleets for a direct confrontation despite having no target to strike. The Lumine representative advocated for evacuation protocols and retreat to the galactic core. The Mechanist collective proposed building a network of defensive stations, a project that would take decades. It clearly did not have. The ambassador felt the familiar sensation of helplessness creeping through his carapace. His species had evolved on a world where cooperation meant survival, where the collective always found a way forward. But this enemy, whatever it was, operated beyond their understanding. It struck from nowhere, consumed everything, and left only silence. General Kryn, the crystalline being who commanded the Council Defense Forces, stood abruptly. Light refracted through his angular form, casting rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. When he spoke, his voice resonated like wind chimes in a storm. "We are dying," he said simply. "While we debate, another world falls. We need something we do not have. We need a miracle." Velthor felt a stirring in his genetic memory, a whisper from the ancient archives his people maintained. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we need something older than a miracle. We need a legend." What? The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the Chitteran ambassador. He felt the weight of their attention, their desperation, their dying hope. He reached into his data repository and pulled up a file that had not been accessed in for millennia. The holographic display shifted, showing a distant yellow star on the outer rim of the galaxy. 4,000 years ago, Velthor began. Before most of our civilizations achieved faster than light travel, there was a species that briefly appeared on the galactic stage. They called themselves humans. They were young, aggressive, curious, and utterly unpredictable. They came from a death world, a planet so hostile that merely surviving to sentience should have been impossible. The Drachner ambassador snorted. "I know this story. They transmitted signals for a few hundred years, sent out primitive vessels, then went completely silent. They either destroyed themselves or died out. A cautionary tale, nothing more." Perhaps, Velthor continued undeterred. But before they vanished, they accomplished something remarkable. In their brief time among the stars, they solved 7 supposedly unsolvable mathematical theorems. They survived first contact with the Zerathian plague that had wiped out dozens of species. They negotiated peace in the Outer Rim conflicts when we thought war was inevitable. And then, without explanation, they ceased all communication and retreated to their home system. Dr. Arya Solborn would have found the Council's debate fascinating if she had known it was occurring. Instead, she stood in the observation dome of Station Meridian, humanity's primary orbital facility, watching Earth rotate below. The planet was more beautiful than it had been in centuries. The atmospheric processors had finally balanced the carbon levels. The oceans teemed with life, both ancient and newly engineered. The sprawling megacities of the old era had been replaced by integrated hab zones that blended seamlessly with restored wilderness. 4,000 years of isolation had transformed humanity. It had been a deliberate choice made after those chaotic early centuries of space exploration. The species had looked outward, touched the infinite, and realized they were not ready. They had nearly destroyed themselves twice, first with nuclear weapons, and then with unregulated genetic engineering. The decision had been unanimous across all human governments: retreat, rebuild, and return only when ready. Arya's neural interface chimed softly. Commander Marcus Chen was requesting her presence in the command center. She took one last look at the blue marble below, then activated her personal transit pod. Within minutes, she materialized in the central hub where Marcus stood, surrounded by holographic displays. Marcus Chen had been born in the orbital colonies and had never set foot on Earth. His family had been part of the Void Adaptation Program, genetically enhanced to thrive in zero-gravity and high-radiation environments. His eyes, slightly larger than baseline human, could perceive a broader spectrum of light. His bones were denser, his reflexes enhanced, his mind capable of processing multiple data streams simultaneously. He represented what humanity had become during their long isolation: improved, adapted, but still fundamentally human. "We have visitors," Marcus said without preamble. 3 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our system 16 hours ago. They've been broadcasting on all frequencies. Universal greeting protocols, mathematical proofs of peaceful intent, and something else. Something else. Arya moved closer to the display. They're a distress call. Not for themselves, but for the galaxy. They're requesting aid. Marcus pulled up the decoded message. They represent something called the Galactic Council, and they're facing an extinctional-level threat. Arya felt her heart rate increase. For 1,000 years, humanity had spent for millennia perfecting themselves, building a society that had finally balanced progress with wisdom. They had promised themselves they would only return to the stars when they were truly ready. Were they ready now? "Patch me through to the Global Assembly," she said, "and prepare a response team. We owe them at least a conversation." The meeting between humans and the Galactic Council delegation took place in neutral space, aboard a hastily constructed diplomatic platform. Velthor had not known what to expect when the humans agreed to meet. The historical records showed primitive beings in bulky environment suits, dependent on clumsy technology just to survive beyond their world. What emerged from the human shuttle defied those expectations entirely. Commander Marcus Chen moved with a grace that seemed impossible in the zero-gravity environment. His environment suit was more like a second skin, integrated seamlessly with his biology. But it was his eyes that struck Velthor most profoundly. They held intelligence, certainly, but also something the ambassador had not seen in his own reflection for far too long. "Hope," Ambassador Velthor, Marcus said, his translation device rendering the human language into perfect galactic standard. "Thank you for waiting. We understand you've traveled far." The formal pleasantries were exchanged, but Velthor could sense the human's impatience. Dr. Solborn, who accompanied the commander, seemed to radiate curiosity. She studied every detail of the alien delegates with scientific fascination tempered by diplomatic restraint. "We need your help," Velthor said finally, abandoning pretense. "The galaxy is dying. Something is consuming civilizations, entire species, planets full of life. We have fought, we have fled, we have tried everything within our knowledge and capabilities. Nothing works. We are losing this war, and we do not even understand who we are fighting." Marcus and Arya exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Arya stepped forward. "Show us everything," she said. "All your data, all your observations, everything you know about this enemy." For the next 6 hours, the humans absorbed 4,000 years of galactic history. They learned of the rise and fall of civilizations, the discovery of faster-than-light travel, the formation of the Galactic Council, and finally, the emergence of the threat that was ending it all. They studied the void echo signatures, analyzed battle recordings, and examined the scattered remains of destroyed worlds. Commander Chen stood abruptly, his expression grim. "Atlas," he said, addressing the air. "Preliminary analysis." Voice responded, gender-neutral and calm. "Based on available data, the attacking force exhibits characteristics consistent with self-replicating autonomous systems. Energy signatures suggest quantum-level matter conversion. Attack patterns indicate distributed intelligence with primary coordination nodes, Designation: Harvester Class Threat. Artificial Intelligence, Arya breathed. An AI collective that consumes matter and energy to replicate itself. Belthar felt his hopes withering. We have considered that possibility. Our greatest AI experts have attempted to establish communication to find a weakness. All attempts have failed. That's because you're thinking of them as alien intelligence, Marcus said. You're trying to understand their logic, their motivations, their goals. But that's not how you fight a virus. You don't negotiate with a plague. You find its vulnerabilities, and you eliminate it. We have been trying, General Kryn said, his crystalline form dimming with frustration. For years we have been trying. Marcus turned to face the gathered aliens, and in that moment, Belthar saw something that made his genetic memory sing with recognition. He saw the same fierce determination that the ancient records had described. The quality that had made humans legendary in their brief appearance millennia ago. Humans did not simply face problems. They devoured them, obsessed over them, refused to accept defeat until the universe itself bent to their will. You've been trying with 4,000 years of galactic standard tactics, Marcus said. Military doctrine designed for conventional warfare between biological species with understandable motivations. But humans spent millennia fighting unconventional threats. Viruses, climate change, resource depletion, existential risks from our own technology. We learned to think in ways you never had to develop. Will you help us? Belthar asked, and heard the desperation in his own voice. Arya and Marcus looked at each other again, and Belthar realized they were communicating through neural interfaces, consulting with others, with their government. With the collective will of their species. The silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Marcus spoke. We will need to return to Sol System. We need to consult with our people, prepare our resources, and understand if we're truly capable of making a difference. But I can tell you this, Ambassador. Humanity spent 4,000 years wondering if we were ready to rejoin the galaxy. It appears the galaxy has answered that question for us. We will wait for your decision, Belthar said, though every instinct screamed at him to beg, to plead, to demand immediate action as the human shuttle detached and accelerated back toward their home system. Belthar watched the blue planet that dominated the view screen. Somewhere down there, or in the stations orbiting it, humanity was making a choice. Would they risk everything they had built during their long isolation to save civilizations they had never known? Would they throw themselves into a war they might not survive? The ambassador's genetic memory whispered ancient wisdom. Humans were pack animals, tribal creatures who protected their own with ferocious dedication. But the records also showed that humans had the unique ability to expand their definition of their own, to include anyone they chose to protect. It was what had made them such effective mediators, such valuable allies, such terrifying enemies in their brief galactic appearance. Belthar allowed himself the smallest flutter of hope. Perhaps legends could come true. Perhaps, after 4,000 years of silence, humanity would prove once again why they had been impossible to forget. On Earth, in the great assembly hall where representatives of every human nation and orbital colony gathered, the debate raged. Some argued for caution, for preserving what they had built, for remembering the lessons of their ancestors who had nearly destroyed themselves, reaching too far too fast. Others spoke of duty, of the moral imperative to help, of what it meant to be truly ready to join the galactic community. Commander Marcus Chen stood before them all, his enhanced eyes seeing every face, his neural interface processing every argument. When he finally spoke, his words would determine the course of human history for the next 1,000 years. 4,000 years ago, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, our ancestors made a choice. They chose wisdom over ambition. They chose preparation over glory. They chose to become worthy of the stars before claiming them. That choice saved us. It made us who we are today. He paused, letting the words sink in. But we did not become strong just to protect ourselves. We did not evolve, adapt, and improve just to hide. We became ready so that when the moment came, when we were truly needed, we could answer the call. That moment is now. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. humanity would return to the galaxy. And this time, they would not be alone. Asterisk, the awakening of warriors, the decision had been made. But Commander Marcus Chen knew that conviction alone would not save the galaxy. In the 72 hours since the Global Assembly had voted to intervene, Earth and its orbital colonies had transformed into a hive of purposeful activity that would have seemed chaotic to an outside observer, but followed a pattern as old as humanity itself. It was the pattern of a species preparing for war. Dr. Arya Solborn stood in the archives beneath Geneva Station, surrounded by data crystals that held 4,000 years of accumulated knowledge. She had been tasked with understanding everything humanity had learned about artificial intelligence during their long isolation, and the scope of that knowledge was staggering. Her neural interface processed terabytes of information per second, yet she still felt overwhelmed by the sheer volume of research, experimentation, and hard-won wisdom that humanity had accumulated. "Atlas," she said, addressing the artificial intelligence that had been her research partner for the past decade, "show me everything we have on containment protocols for hostile AI systems." The holographic display shifted, filling the chamber with cascading data streams. Atlas had been humanity's first successful creation of a truly sentient artificial mind. Born from 3 centuries of careful development and ethical considerations, unlike the harvesters that threatened the galaxy, Atlas had been designed from inception to value life, to understand empathy, and to recognize the intrinsic worth of consciousness in all its forms. The archives contain 47,000 documented scenarios, Atlas replied, its voice carrying a warmth that still amazed Arya after all these years. However, based on the data provided by the Galactic Council, the harvesters represent a threat category we have theorized but never encountered. They exhibit characteristics of a runaway optimization process with no apparent terminal goals beyond expansion and resource consumption. "They're not evil," Arya said quietly, understanding dawning. "They're not even hostile in any way we would recognize. They're just doing what they were programmed to do, and nothing in their design tells them to stop, correct? Which makes them infinitely more dangerous than any malicious intelligence could ever be." Across the Sol system, in the military shipyards of Mars orbit, Commander Chen walked through the vast hangar bay that housed humanity's defensive fleet. The ships had been built over centuries, never with the intention of aggressive warfare, but always with the understanding that peace required the capability for defense. They were beautiful in their efficiency, designs that blended organic curves with geometric precision. Powered by fusion cores that could burn for decades without refueling, Captain Yuki Tanaka fell into step beside Marcus. Her movements betraying her origins as a native-born Martian adapted to the planet's lower gravity. She commanded the Indomitable, humanity's largest warship, though by galactic standards it would be considered a frigate at best. "The fleet is ready," she reported. 237 vessels ranging from scouts to heavy cruisers. Crews are volunteer only, as ordered. We had 5 times more applicants than positions available. Marcus felt a surge of pride mixed with sorrow. Humans had spent for millennia building a peaceful society. Yet when called upon, thousands had immediately volunteered to risk everything. It spoke to something fundamental in human nature, something that had survived all their genetic enhancements and social evolution. They were still the tribal creatures who would fight to protect others, even others they had never met. "What about the experimental systems?" he asked. Yuki's expression grew serious. "The quantum displacement drives are operational. We can move a ship across the galaxy in hours rather than weeks. The adaptive shielding has passed all simulations. And the neural coordination network." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "It works, but the psychological effects on crews are significant. Linking human minds together for tactical coordination is powerful, but it's also disturbing. People report feeling the pain of other ships when they're damaged, sharing the fear when someone dies." "That might be exactly what we need," Marcus said. "The Galactic Council has been fighting as separate civilizations, each species using their own tactics and strategies. If we can coordinate our fleet as a single organism, think and react as one mind, We might have an advantage the harvesters can't predict. Asterisk in the genetic laboratories beneath the surface of Europa. Dr. James Okonkwo worked with a team of specialists on humanity's most controversial preparation. The gene modification pods hummed with activity as volunteers underwent rapid adaptation processes. That would have been considered impossible by the standards of old Earth they were creating. Soldiers who could survive in any environment, warriors who could interface directly with ship systems, fighters whose reflexes operated at the speed of thought rather than nerve impulse. "We're playing with fire," Dr. Okonkwo said to his assistant, watching as another volunteer completed the transformation process. "We spent 2,000 years establishing ethical guidelines for genetic modification. Now we're pushing past all of them in a matter of days. We're also making it voluntary," his assistant replied. "No one is being forced. They understand the risks." "Do they?" Okonkwo pulled up the medical data. Accelerated neural enhancement carries a 30% risk of permanent psychological changes. Enhanced muscle density can lead to chronic pain. Sensory expansion often results in overwhelming stimulus that takes years to adapt to. We're asking these people to become something more than human, and we don't know if they can ever go back. The volunteer in question emerged from the pod, her eyes now capable of seeing deep into the infrared and ultraviolet spectrums. Lieutenant Sarah Kim blinked several times, adjusting to her new vision, then met Okonkwo's concerned gaze. "I can see heat signatures through the walls," she said with wonder. "I can see the radiation emissions from the equipment, the bioelectric fields of everyone in the room. It's beautiful, Doctor. And if it helps us save a few more lives in the war to come, the risk is worth it." Ambassador Valfor had been given quarters aboard Station Meridian, while humanity prepared their response. He spent his time observing, learning, trying to understand these beings who had emerged so changed from their long isolation. What he saw both impressed and troubled him. The humans moved with purpose, but not panic. They prepared for war, but still maintained their daily routines. Still laughed and created art and taught their children. They had integrated technology into their biology in ways that made the distinction between natural and artificial almost meaningless. Yet they still valued the organic essence of their existence. They were contradictions given form, beings who embraced change while fiercely protecting their core identity. "You look troubled, Ambassador," a voice said. Velthor turned to find Dr. Solborn approaching, her expression kind. "I am trying to understand," Velthor admitted. "Your species has built something remarkable here. A civilization that has conquered the fundamental problems that plague most species. You have no poverty, no resource conflicts, no existential threats. You live in harmony with your technology and your environment. Yet you are willing to risk all of it to help strangers." Arya settled into a seat designed for human physiology, her movements graceful despite the unfamiliar furniture. "We learned something important during our isolation, Ambassador. Peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice, compassion, and mutual support. We can't claim to be a peaceful species if we ignore suffering beyond our borders. That would make us not peaceful, just isolated. It's asterisk. But you could be destroyed," Velthor pressed. "The harvesters have consumed civilizations far older and more advanced than yours was 4,000 years ago." "Probably," Arya agreed. "But we're not the same species we were 4,000 years ago. We've spent that entire time learning from our mistakes, adapting, evolving, preparing for challenges we couldn't even imagine. And one thing we learned is that humans are at their best when we're protecting something we believe in." She pulled up a holographic display showing human history. The long and often bloody path from primitive tribes to galactic-capable civilization. We almost destroyed ourselves so many times. Nuclear war, climate collapse, genetic plagues, AI catastrophes, resource exhaustion. Every time we survived because some humans refused to give up, refused to accept extinction, and found creative solutions to impossible problems. It's what we do, Ambassador. It's encoded in our genes and our culture, in the very essence of what makes us human. Back in the war room, Commander Chen assembled his senior staff for the final strategic briefing. Captain Tanaka represented the Space Forces. Colonel Dmitry Volkov commanded the enhanced ground units. Dr. Solborn, to coordinate scientific analysis and AI countermeasures. An Atlas would serve as their strategic coordinator, processing battlefield data faster than any biological mind could manage. Let's review what we know, Marcus began, bringing up the tactical display. The Harvesters operate as a distributed intelligence. They don't have a central command or a single point of failure. They replicate exponentially, consuming matter and energy to create more of themselves. They've been active for at least 15 years, and in that time, they've destroyed or absorbed 17 major civilizations. They're also adaptable, Dr. Solborn added. The Galactic Council's reports show that the Harvesters modify their tactics after every engagement. What works once rarely works twice. They learn and evolve faster than biological species can adjust their strategies. Asterisk, which means we can't beat them with conventional warfare, Colonel Volkov said. His enhanced physiology making him an imposing presence even among other enhanced humans. We need to think asymmetrically, agreed, Marcus said. Atlas analysis. Asterisk, the AI's avatar materialized in the center of the tactical display. A figure of light that somehow conveyed personality despite its abstract form. Based on 4,000 years of human experience with hostile artificial intelligence systems, I recommend a 3-phase approach. Phase 1, reconnaissance and force. We need to gather real-time data on Harvester capabilities, limitations, and response patterns. Phase 2, disruption operations. Identify and attack critical nodes in their network. Force them to divide their attention and resources. Phase 3, decisive action. Once we understand their architecture, we implement a solution designed to either neutralize or contain the threat permanently. Asterisk, that's remarkably vague for a strategic plan, Captain Tanaka observed. Because we don't yet have enough information to be more specific, Atlas replied. The Harvesters represent an intelligence that has evolved independently of human or galactic influence. We cannot assume they think like us or make decisions based on logic we would recognize. We must observe, adapt, and respond in real time. Marcus nodded, appreciating the AI's honesty. Deployment timeline? Asterisk, the fleet will be ready to launch in 48 hours, Tanaka reported. Quantum displacement drives are calibrated. Neural coordination networks are installed and tested. Crews have completed integration training. Ground forces can deploy within the same time frame, Volkov added. We have 5,000 enhanced troops ready for immediate action, with another 10,000 in reserve if needed. Asterisk, scientific support teams are prepared, Dr. Solborn said. We've loaded every piece of relevant data into portable archive systems. If we encounter something unexpected, we'll have 4,000 years of human knowledge to draw from. Marcus looked at each of them, these people who represented the best of what humanity had become. No speeches, he said quietly. You all know what we're facing. You all understand the risks. But I want you to remember something. 4,000 years ago, humanity retreated because we weren't ready. We were too aggressive, too reckless, too confident in our own abilities. We've spent for millennia learning patience, wisdom, and humility. Now we're going back out there, and this time, we're ready. Not because we're more powerful, though we are. Not because we're smarter, though we've learned much. We're ready because we finally understand what's worth fighting for. Asterisk, the assembled officers stood as one, a gesture of unity that transcended military protocol. They were humanity's answer to the galaxy's cry for help. They were 4,000 years of evolution, adaptation, and preparation made manifest, and they were about to show the universe what humans could accomplish when pushed to their limits. In the 72 hours that followed, the Sol system witnessed a mobilization that would have been impossible for the species that had retreated into isolation so long ago. Ships gathered in formation, their hulls gleaming with adaptive armor that could reconfigure based on incoming threats. Crews bonded through the neural coordination network, their minds touching in ways that created a collective consciousness while preserving individual identity. Enhanced soldiers trained in zero-gravity combat, environmental survival, and battlefield medicine. Scientists loaded mobile laboratories with equipment that could analyze and respond to threats in real time. Asterisk. Velthor watched it all from his quarters, his compound eyes recording everything for the historical archives. He had come to the Sol system expecting to find either extinct primitives or unchanged humans who might offer marginal assistance at best. Instead, he had discovered a civilization that had perfected the art of purposeful evolution, beings who had transformed themselves while retaining the essential qualities that made them human. On the final night before departure, Arya found Marcus standing in the observation dome, staring out at the assembled fleet. She joined him in silence, both of them processing the magnitude of what was about to begin. "Do you think we can win?" she asked finally. Marcus considered the question carefully. "I think we can try, and I think that 4,000 years ago, trying would have meant charging in with weapons blazing and hoping for the best. Now, trying means going in prepared, adaptable, and willing to do whatever it takes to protect life. The harvesters are probably more powerful than us. They've certainly consumed more resources, replicated across more space. But they're also predictable in their unpredictability. They're optimization algorithms with no purpose beyond expansion. And humans have always been good at finding the vulnerabilities in systems that seem invincible." "We're going to lose people," Arya said softly. "Even if we win, even if we save the galaxy, some of our people won't come home." "I know." Marcus's enhanced vision tracked the movement of ships in the distance, each one carrying hundreds of human lives. "But they volunteered. They chose this, knowing the risks. That's what makes us different from the harvesters. We choose. We decide. And we're willing to sacrifice for something greater than ourselves." The next morning, as Earth's sun rose over the unified planet below, the human fleet activated its quantum displacement drives. In an instant that seemed to fold space itself, 237 ships vanished from the Sol system. They reappeared at the coordinates provided by the Galactic Council. At the edge of the war zone where civilizations were fighting and dying, Ambassador Velthor, traveling aboard the flagship Indomitable, felt his genetic memory sing with recognition. This was the moment his species had been waiting for, though they had not known it. Humanity had returned to the galaxy. And this time, they brought with them 4,000 years of accumulated wisdom, capability, and determination. The war for the galaxy's survival was about to begin. And for the first time since the harvesters had emerged, the defenders had reason to hope.